My name is Daniel Westbrook, and today we're going to do a little bit of demolition and some framing in an existing wall where we would like to have a window located. I know that with this project, we're framing in a wall that's open because it's part of a bigger remodel, but sometimes we're asked to put a window or a door in an existing wall that has finishes on the inside and the outside, and so it's not always as easy to identify what is most important, and that is the structural load, where that location is. So if somebody's asking me to install a window where there isn't one, the first thing that I'm going to do is identify what the structure is doing, where the loads are, because when you're cutting out an exterior wall like that, the structure has to be supported. And usually, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to want to hire an engineer, which is usually what I do. In this case, it's a permitted job, so we know what we need to do. Now, after considering what's happening with the structure, the second most important thing is what's happening inside the wall. If you can't see inside the wall, you need to consider that there's going to be utilities like electrical, plumbing. Obviously, there's going to be insulation, low voltage wiring, any number of things. So it's very important to verify what's in your wall before you get started. And that may require, opening it up in certain places just to get a better understanding of what's in there. In this project, obviously, we had a plumbing vent in the way. It's one of the things that came right through the wall that we had to cut out. But another thing that would have been in the way here is electrical wiring. Now, we've already done a lot of our demo, so the wiring has been removed out of the wall, but that's one of the things that you're going to have to look out for, and what are you going to do with it if it's in the way. When planning a project like this, I always like to consider which direction I'd like to work the wall from, the exterior or the interior. And both of those working directions, there's different advantages and disadvantages, and so that's part of the planning process of what is most efficient, what keeps the dust down. It depends on where you're located on the house. If it's a second story, it might be easier to come from the inside. If it's down on the ground, it might be easier to go from the outside, keep the dust down from the inside. It's really important to consider which direction you'd like to open up the wall from. And on this project, we decided to come from the inside because we already were working inside the home and already had our dust control set up, but also it's up on a second floor, so it was just a little bit easier to come from this side to do all of our framing. Now, once the working direction has been figured out, it's really important to understand how you're going to support the load. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm working on a gable end wall, and so that load is minimal. That's like a truss that's supported on either end, and I'm working in the middle of that. So the load is very minimal, and so I didn't need to support the structure. On the other hand, if I'm working on a wall that's supporting trusses and floor load, absolutely that floor is going to have to be supported temporarily while the wall is being cut out. So once we got to framing, it's pretty standard installation procedure, so it's just a matter of cutting and installing as usual. Now, the other thing is I like to leave, like in this case, I'm working from the inside out, so I left all the sheathing on the outside of the wall, and I just did that as a matter of practicality because I'm not going to be getting my windows for a while, I'm not going to be installing those for a while, so just by letting that sheathing out there, that shiplap just sort of dangle out there is fine, and I'll cut it out later when I need to. That saves time from actually putting in having to cut a piece to put it in later. Okay, so now that we've finished our framing, the next steps are to cut out the exterior, install the window, install the exterior trim, interior trim, but we're going to get to that later in this remodel. My name is Daniel Westbrook. We'll talk to you soon.